Hey Reddit. What's the most fricked up thing the US government has done? Like and subscribe and we'll make more videos. And share your story in the comments.
The Trail of Tears is pretty up there for most fricked up thing.
Wounded Knee would be another watershed moment for awfulness.
Sand Creek was up there.
I mean, there was the time the National Guard shot and killed coal miners and their families who were being horribly exploited by coal companies, so they were striking. See also, the Ludlow Massacre. And the time they decided to routinely sterilize Native American women. And the Guatemala syphilis experiments.
Don't forget the National Guard killing college students at Kent State protesting Vietnam.
And the Tuskegee syphilis experiments. WTF is it with syphilis? Cut it out, you guys.
The silencing, embarrassing, and killing of Gary Webb. Gary Webb was an investigative journalist who proved that the CIA was selling massive amounts of drugs, particularly cocaine, to typically black poor neighborhoods all over the U.S. This was in order to fund an overthrow of the Nicaraguan government by U.S.-friendly terrorists during the 90s. He was forced to resign, disgraced, blacklisted, divorced, and found dead with 2 bullets through his head in 2004. It was ruled a suicide despite the facts he owned no guns. And it being 2 bullets through the head in a suicide.
Okay, so they managed to hide a drug ring for ages. But can't kill a person correctly. Dumbasses LMAO.
I was never even aware of this. This whole thread has me fricked up.
The Tuskegee syphilis experiment.
Came here to say exactly this. 600 black males were told they were receiving free health care. Instead they were deliberately exposed to syphilis so its natural progress could be studied. Some were selected because they already had it. None of them were informed they had it, and none were treated for it. So they went back out into their communities and very likely spread it. None the wiser. The study lasted 40 years.
I worked in a library years ago, and while I was putting books back, I read a spine with an interesting title. I picked up the book and started reading it. That is how I found out about Tuskegee. It was never mentioned in school. If I hadn't been reading spines, I literally wouldn't even know it was a thing.
The CIA testing birth control on unsuspecting women in Puerto Rico.
Along with testing Agent Orange on the island.
They also were intentionally sterilizing Puerto Rican women. Not just testing birth control.
Well, this probably isn't the worst thing America has done since it didn't happen. But Operation Northwoods. This was a proposed false flag attack on US soil that would justify going to war with Cuba. It was rejected by Kennedy, but approved by every man before him. It's stuff like this that makes the whole 9/11 inside job conspiracy sound a little less wacky. Because this was essentially the same thing.
Kennedy had a surprising number of those WTF guys. No, we're not doing that moments.
Good thing Dick Cheney would have never kept a decision like that from the president.
I'm sure that for every fricked up thing we know about, there are even worse things that we don't.
Roswell. 1947. Let's say that myth about aliens anally probing us is purely projection.
The involvement in various Latin American countries during the Cold War was pretty fricked up.
Chiquita and Dole are still in business. WTF.
How many democratic governments do we have to overthrow until you realize socialism doesn't work? CIA.
The things they haven't been caught for.
The MK Ultra stuff they leaked was the stuff that didn't work.
This right here. Most underrated comment. Sure. Agent Orange. Horrific massacres. Ethnic cleansing. Supporting fascists and genocide. Assassinations. Torture. Regime changes and all those things done to Native Americans are blood-curdling. But thing is, US is really good at hiding its crimes and exposing those of others, while propagating any wrongdoing of theirs which was found too blatantly obvious as missteps by individual soldiers. Which of course won't get punished anyway. I can't even imagine all the scary shiz we don't know about existence of happening, or we know only the tip of the iceberg.
Agent Orange. Depleted uranium arms that polluted battlefields' people's homelands and left generations of people with birth defects after the war was done.
Beyond Agent Orange in and of itself. But even our own soldiers being told that it was relatively safe when the higher-ups knew it wasn't. I had a good friend who struggled with 2 cancers and a chronic respiratory issue for 30 years before succumbing to it about this time last year due to handling that stuff during Vietnam.
Oh God. I studied the Vietnam War recently and the segment about Agent Orange was petrifying.
We overthrew a democratically elected government in Iran when the people didn't vote for who we wanted.
Shouldn't you list all the democratically elected leaders we've overthrown?
Operation Wetback. Along the lines, same ethics of the Japanese internment camps, but not as well known.
Currently, they are abusing the fact that the whole population is tunnel visioning on the corona pandemic to pass a highly controversial bill that will grant them access to every single phone call or message passed, sent, received on American soil, without warrant or court order.
And nobody knows about this. They honestly probably have access to everything we do anyway though. Wish more people cared about their privacy.
It's a bit more nuanced and insidious than that. They know they can't order any company to build a backdoor. So what the bill is calling for is a way for companies to be held liable for crimes committed using their platform, even if the company had no knowledge of the crime. For example, if someone were to send child porn pictures through iMessage and they get caught, Apple could be charged alongside them for distributing child pornography. So the effect of this would-be companies would backdoor their services to monitor them so they can't be held legally responsible. Of course, once the backdoor is in place, law enforcement will just start subpoenaing records and companies would have to comply. While you are right, it does grant them access to encrypted data. People should be aware of the language they are trying to use to get there. They aren't asking directly for a backdoor. They are saying to companies, backdoor your services for us or we can charge you with crimes.